This week on Inevitable,
The Mafia poisons space.
HR almost gets us killed.
And we get hundreds of dollars worth of free drugs from the cops.
Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And this is Inevitable, that podcast where only one character has a backstory, because this week we watched This Case to Be Opened in a Million Years.
Written by Philip Martin.
Directed by Graham Harper.
And aired on August 3rd, 1987.
Episode 5, we're officially halfway.
More than halfway.
Well, barely more than halfway.
Yeah.
4.5 is halfway.
Yeah.
And Philip Martin wrote this week's... Is this the first non-Chris Boucher episode?
Yes. I don't remember who wrote last week's episode. I think
it was Chris.
Yeah, I think this is the first non-Chris Boucher episode.
Well, I found out that Philip Martin was the one who wrote the script for the episode that never got filmed, that got cancelled as well.
Huh.
And apparently it was going to be a Agatha Christie-style whodunit mystery, which sounds a lot like it would have just been Robots of Death, but Star Cops.
Well, we had Robots of Death Blake 7 version with Mission to Destiny.
We did.
Speaking of which, this is the first Star Cops episode that has a Blake 7 actor in it. But we'll get there when we get to our actors segment. I mean, I didn't really have any making of stuff for this.
No, besides that whole Philip Martin wrote that other script that never got filmed, that's all I got.
Yeah. I guess it was part of our mini review thing that we tend to do. I really liked this episode.
Yeah,
I thought it was
liked
good.
it. I liked it. I wasn't really sold on it till about halfway through. First half I felt it was very non sequitur between the Nathan and the other plots, but then it kind of came together and I liked it.
Well, a lot of these episodes seem to be doing that, and Blake 7 did that as well, where it's you have this A plot and this B plot, and they kind of come together. In this episode, one of those plots is that Nathan is just going on vacation, so that doesn't seem to be going anywhere until what happens.
The Anorak Zone insists that they believe that David Calder plays Nathan Spring, right?
Yeah, yep.
That him hitting his foot on the door frame at the very end of the episode was like an accident, and they just dubbed in him saying "damn it" to cover it up. But he says there's no evidence of that fact. It's just something he believes.
It's like the C-3PO hitting his head on the Millennium Falcon thing, or whatever it was from one of the Star Wars movies, which was totally not in the script at all, and they just went with it.
Hey, sometimes you just have to. Especially when Star Cops is filming on a shoestring budget and probably only has enough money for one, maybe two takes.
Flashback to all those Doctor Who episodes where the actors got the lines completely wrong and they just restarted the line. William Hartnell was the biggest doer of that, but I seem to remember Jaclyn Hill having the most egregious example of that, where she just restarts the line.
Yeah, for some reason those things still happen in television shows. I was watching Law and Order the other day, and the district attorney calls the judge a detective, and I was like, did nobody catch this in post production?
Yeah, there's I forget what the actual role is called, but there's a continuity person on TV whose job is to just catch those things and also and also make sure the costumes and stuff are contiguous throughout the scenes. But yeah, it's a person's job to do that.
Well, they were clearly off duty that day. Anyway, I guess we could just get right into it then.
Yep. The first thing we see in the episode is someone driving the Star Cops rover near a launch site on the moon. I like how in this future there's so many different factions and companies just operating on the moon, seemingly not caring about one another at all.
Well, the Italians clearly care about Star Cops.
Yeah, so get ready for
I say the Italians because I know... because, really, there's, this other mining company that's involved in this whole thing, because there's the trash disposal company and the mining company. And the mining company had, they had a name that Sunzek.
Yeah, Sunzek, yeah.
I don't think the mining company ever actually was, named in this episode. But they were all Italian, and they were keyed in with the Mafia, who were also all Italian, so I'm just going to call them the Italians.
It was Santoni, wasn't it? Because there was Santonini, he was the guy in charge, but then Santoni was the name of the company, I believe.
Was it?
I think so.
I thought Santoni was another one of the Italians.
I'm not 100% sure, but I think what I got out of it was that Santonini was the guy in charge and the guy responsible for the crime,
Well, also
or as charged,
Angelo.
and Angelo and Condorini. Yeah, get ready for the Italian names, in this. But I think Santoni was the company.
The Italians.
The Godfather.
There are Italians involved in this plot who are not part of the company, like Lena.
Was Lena not,
Yeah,
I don't
because
know.
there's no personnel records for Lena on the base. Because Nathan had them look her up because he was suspicious of her backstory being part of like a biomedical company. So they looked her up in like all the personnel records on the moon base, and Kenzie was like, "Yeah, she doesn't exist on
Could have
moon
just
base."
been like a part of a cover up or something. I don't know. I honestly don't even know. But there was like that random tour guide. He was Italian and he
Well, there's
wasn't
also
like,
the police commissioner who was also in on it, who wasn't part of the company. So
Anyway, back at Star Cops HQ, we find out that a drug called hallucinogen HC46 was discovered in the locker of one Angelo Pordenone.
So the company just sends him to Earth to, I guess, evade prosecution by the Star Cops. I don't know.
Well, I think they sent him to Earth ostensibly because they wanted to press these charges against him and not have the company. They didn't want to cover it up, essentially. Although them not wanting to cover it up was a cover up.
Complex. Meanwhile, they're about to launch a rocket
Full of nuclear
yeah.
waste.
Yeah, and it starts to tip sideways, and it's at like a 45-degree angle, and they're like, abort, abort. And I'm like, yo, it's way too late for that. It's like, it's going down at that point.
Well, some sirens start blaring, and there's a conversation during these sirens that I have no knowledge of because the sirens were too loud. So I have no idea what they're saying there. Maybe they're saying like, yeah, I think Santoni was like doing all of this. I think they're just revealing the plot.
It's
No,
like
no.
those movies that have like, what was it, Taken or so? There's a movie where at the beginning of the movie,
Freaking Taken.
there's a bunch of Russians talking in Russian, and they just reveal the whole plot of the movie like right there in the beginning.
Yeah.
Well, everybody has to put on radiation suits because they're afraid of, I guess, radiation leakage from the waste.
Right. Theroux especially. We find out why later.
But yeah, everybody's fine in Star Cops HQ, and they're like, "Where's David?" And he just walks in the door. He's like, "I'm fine. I'm fine. Don't worry about me. I'm fine."
He's like glowing. I'm fine.
He's big and green. I'm fine.
He's Shrek. Oh God.
I was going for the Hulk, but that works too. So Nathan gets a call from HR, and they're like, "You have to go to Earth."
There's a new HR like manager who's apparently doing her job far more to the books than the other person.
Yeah, when she's like, "I'm the new HR person," basically, I was like, "Wow, Star Cops has like the highest turnover rate in history."
I mean, they kind of do. It's like one of those it almost feels as if like Nathan being in charge of the Star Cops is like one of those company takeovers where there's like a new CEO and everyone gets fired and they just bring on like a new team.
Maybe. Did you notice those two random Star Cops in the background, like at the end of the episode? And you're like,
Yeah.
"Man, who are those guys?"
Yeah, I noticed that. And what the hell were they doing throughout all of this? Kenzie and Davis were maybe reluctantly and maybe not well with investigating, but like they were investigating. But what the hell were these guys doing? Just like chilling?
Chilling like a villain, you know?
So Nathan has to go to Earth. He decides to take a vacation to Italy. Because on the shuttle back to Earth, Box is like, hey Nathan, remember how like Lee's dead and everything? And remember how like you were going to take a vacation with her to Italy? Remember that? Remember how
He
Lee's
gets convinced
deceased?
to go to Italy by this person who just sits next to him. Kind of like, they're sitting in the same seats that Davis and Kenzie sat in too. But
Are they? I didn't notice that.
yes.
I totally didn't notice that they just reused that. Wow. They dimmed the lights, and I guess it worked on me.
It worked on you. But this lady sits down next to Nathan and is like, "Hey, you should come to Italy because I'm Italian and I'll take you in the catacombs."
Yeah, this is
Lena.
Lena Margello, and she's a real big spokesperson for her country. She's very nationalistic and loves Italy.
She's just trying to convince Nathan to go to Italy. I guess like most of Italy is in on the scheme to kill Nathan.
Yeah, so I mean, she's it's not ever actually confirmed that she's part of this, but she's part of it. Like this is how Nathan, because she's like, hey, like we should totally like go to these catacombs together.
Yeah.
And it kind of, again, I don't want to dwell on this too much, but it kind of feels like in the Star Cops universe, like people just more aggressively and more openly like just hit on each other because it kind of feels like she's just kind of going for that with Nathan.
Yeah, it's kind of weird too because she sits down next to him and starts with, "Yeah, my boyfriend or fiance or whatever. He's like fraternizing with some other woman right now, and I'm upset about it." And then she starts flirting with Nathan. And I'm like,
Turns out this was all just a ploy to get Nathan to the catacombs.
It works because it starts raining in Italy, and he tries to call Lena to cancel it, but like I said, there's no personnel records of her, so he's like, I guess I gotta go to the catacombs.
Yeah, he calls Kenzie actually, and Kenzie's like, yeah, there's no record of anyone named Lena Margello. You would think a person from, you know, the UK would be all right with rain, but I don't know.
Well, we find out also during the rocket ride that Box's manufacturers closed in 2025, so this is at least post 2025. I know you said, like, I don't know if there's anything that explicitly sets this in 2027. It might just be people assuming, but we can at least say now that this is post 2025.
Right. I also thought up until this point that Box was like just created by Nathan's dad, like literally just sat down and built Box from scratch.
Yeah, apparently it was built by, like, a company.
Right. So was Nathan's father like in charge of this company, or was he like maybe an engineer at this company or something? We don't know. We don't know yet. We also find out in this exchange that Venice is underwater. And there's some
Climate change.
there is like an environmental like kind of twist to this episode. What with like they're dumping trash in space, they're dumping nuclear waste in space, or they're not dumping it. They're literally just sending it on rockets like away from Earth.
Yeah.
And there's the whole like climate change thing where Venice is like underwater.
Well, my next note is Divas doesn't like Italians.
No, he doesn't like them at all.
Because Divas and Kenzie are getting some food in the cafeteria. David's ostensibly in charge right now, but he's like MIA for a lot of this.
Yeah, so he and Divas were actually supposed to go investigate Santoni, which they do, but Santoni's like, yeah, we're not going to be letting you guys investigate our most secretive, areas or whatever.
And David just goes along with this. He's like, yeah, seems fine to me. Divas is like, no, it's not. It's total BS. But yeah, in this exchange in the cafeteria, Divas is just like, those Italians, I don't trust them.
This is before anyone knows the mob is involved, by the way. This is well before
completely
that.
Unprompted, too. Kenzie's like the poor, unsuspecting, like, recipient of his rant about Italians.
Yeah, this is like when you like know someone for like a little while, and then all of a sudden they mention something like this, like like damn those Italians, like freaking Italians, like I hate Italians, and you're like, wait, what? Like where did that come from? But meanwhile, in the same cafeteria, the most suspicious conversation is being held at a normal volume. Where, gosh, I forget her name, but she is part of the plan. She's a big part of the plan. Oh, right. Marla Condorini sits down with Santonini. Or, no, was it Santonini or was it someone else?
I know her and Santonini have a conversation later on, like after they fail to kill Nathan.
Yeah, was it her and some other woman right now? I don't remember. It was, she sits down with someone and they kind of, again, I'm forgetting this, what exactly occurs in this scene, and my notes aren't helping. But they have a very suspicious conversation that like would potentially incriminate them, I think, if anyone overheard it.
Yeah, well, Divas is too busy ranting about the Italians, so
right.
Nathan almost gets killed.
Yeah, so this is kind of happening all concurrently. I believe we kind of explained this a little out of order, but Nathan goes to the catacombs anyway, and he's on this guided tour. And he almost gets killed. And we find out that the person who almost killed him was Angelo Perdononi, the guy who was supposed to be on trial for drug
kind of
possession.
does the same thing the roller skater dude does, and he just runs up behind and tries to stab him, and then Nathan just stabs the needle that Angelo tried to stab him with into his arm instead, and Angelo just keels over and dies.
Yeah, he falls into like this glowing green like pool of water, question mark? Like, what is this? It's like bright green.
I don't know.
It's underground, so is it like, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, this is like it pretty rapidly switches back and forth because then we swap back to Kravchenko telling David to like, oh yeah, they're gonna computer recreate the crash and you can just investigate that instead of having to investigate their stuff. And David's like, cool, thanks. And then he immediately cuts back to Nathan basically telling the police commissioner about how you Italians suck at your job.
Yeah, basically.
And the commissioner's like, don't worry, we'll investigate this thoroughly. Trust me on this.
So right off the bat, obviously he's untrustworthy. As Nathan is leaving the catacombs, Box alerts him to the fact that like he has thousands of dollars more in his account than
There's thousands of euro dollars.
All right, it was euro dollars. Is this before the euro? I think it is. The euro was like the early '90s, right?
It might be, but Nathan's got euro dollars.
Yeah, I think this is like back when every like European country had its own like currency, and all of them were like way less powerful than the pound and the dollar, which is why they created the euro to like get back on top.
It worked.
It
for
worked.
A while.
Yeah, it worked. So Nathan goes back to his hotel room, I guess.
Where it's currently being robbed.
Yeah. Some guy plants like a large like amount of drugs in Nathan's room.
It looks like a package of crackers
Yeah.
to me. And that's why my next note is Nathan gets banged on the head, so he decides to sniff some crackers.
No, it's presumably hallucinogen HC46.
No, it is.
Yeah.
Nathan says later that it is.
Yeah.
But it looks like a package of crackers.
But okay, so I don't know how expensive, we don't ever learn how expensive hallucinogen is, but like this is a large like amount. Like this is potentially thousands of dollars worth of hallucinogen.
Yeah, Kravchenko says later he's lucky to have not died when he sniffed it.
So yeah, and that's what happens. Nathan like tries to figure out what it is, gets knocked out. And then the commissioner, the inspector, or whatever he is, Inspector Gadget now, the guy comes in, he's like, so guess we're going to be pressing charges for bringing drugs illegally into the country or whatever. So they kind of try and frame Nathan.
They take pictures of him knocked out on the bed with the drugs in hand.
Right.
And he's like, okay, that's weird. He cuts his vacation short and goes up to Moonbase because he's like, this is weird.
Is this when Kravchenko tells him that he needs to stop the mafia from poisoning space?
No, that's like at the end of the episode. But right now, Kenzie this is when Santonini meets with, what was her name?
Condorini? Condorini?
I don't know. She's Australian. And they meet in the cafeteria, and Kenzie just walks in and overhears like most of this conversation, and it's like the most suspicious conversation ever because Santonini's like, yeah, we got to be really careful about the way we frame this guy.
Yeah, this is actually what I was talking about before. That doesn't occur earlier. I think that's actually all just right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm talking about like, got to be really careful about smuggling the stuff too.
I guess like this is Santonini's cafeteria, right? So I guess it would be okay to discuss this openly, considering they're probably all in on it. And anyone who's not is probably just like killed.
Because Santonini, when he meets with her, he's like, this is such a public space compared to all our other meeting spots. Like, is this going to be safe?
No, I guess they just don't care at the end of the day, and they're just like, whatever.
But yeah, Kenzie then walks up to the table and is like, hey, what's up? And she's like, hey, if you ever want a job, you could come work at Sunzek
and
security.
Kenzie like ostensibly investigates this, but I kind of feel as if she knows that they're up to something criminal. And she
overhears half of this conversation.
I mean, my question is she like is she trying to amend her ways and like actually investigate them and see what's going on, or does she want in on their criminal activity? And I don't know the answer to that because Divas sort of interrupts. We don't know if she's like actually on board with, getting on board with their plan or whatever, because Condorini pulls the gun and then Divas shows up. But
right.
So Nathan consults with Divas, and Divas has this idea that all the people involved in this scheme are Italian, so they're presumably he thinks part of the mob. Because I guess Divas is the one who kind of puts this all together, but he thinks the aborted launch and Nathan's run into trouble in Italy are somehow connected.
Mm-hmm.
So he did some background checking, and it turns out that, hold on, this is complicated. I wrote this down. Condorini's dad was a tax evader, and he got killed. But what's more important here is that Santonini's father was married to Condorini's sister. So they're all, yeah, that's what he says.
Somehow
So,
I don't remember this.
so they're all connected. They're all part of the same family. So, Nathan goes like, what, mafia?
But then Nathan gets court-martialed. Basically, they're like, we're sending you to Earth to be put on trial for smuggling drugs and taking bribes.
And Theroux walks in like on his high horse about this. Like, was this weird to you?
Yeah,
He
a little
walked
bit.
in, he's like, yeah, Nathan, like, you're a smuggler and you're like a criminal now and stuff, and I'm in charge here, so like GTFO. And then, like, in the very next scene, Theroux and Davis are discussing it, and he's like, you know what, Davis, he probably didn't do it, but until he's cleared, like, I'm in charge. I guess Theroux just, like, placed total trust in the legal system here.
Yeah, David tells Divas off for investigating this crime further, too.
Yeah, Theroux is not really, like, this is not a good moment for Theroux. Like, this entire case is not Theroux's strongest moment.
No, it's really not. But we find out why.
Yeah, we do kind of find out why he doesn't even want to be involved at all.
There's like a Mondrian hanging on Kravchenko's wall. I thought that was kind of wild.
What is that?
That
Mondrian?
You ever seen those paintings that are just like the red, white, and blue boxes with the black
No.
lines?
No.
I'm sure if you saw a picture of it, you'd be like, oh, that one. Because I'm describing it kind of badly.
Oh.
Yeah, that's Mondrian was the one who designed that. And there's one of those like just hanging on Kravchenko's wall on Moonbase.
Huh.
It's like a pretty famous painting. Like the one of them is like really famous, but he did like 12 of them.
Huh.
I wrote,
So-
why is everybody fighting in this episode? Because, like, Davis is fighting, David is fighting Nathan, and Kenzie's just over here on the side, like, watching all of this play out.
Well, Davis and Theroux are always at each other's throats, and to a lesser extent, I feel as if Kenzie and Nathan are at each other's throats in this, which is why the ending was a little weird to me, because at the end, Davis saves Kenzie, and Theroux saves Nathan. So like, you would think it would be the ones who are kind of in conflict that's resolved at the end, but it's actually the opposite. So what happens now is that Kenzie actually goes to Sunzek, and she's snooping around a little bit. She goes to some off-limits area. That's all we get for now.
Well, she goes over there under the pretense that she's going to take the job doing security for Sunzek, basically. And then when the lady has to take a call, I still don't remember her name.
Condorini?
has to take a call. Kenzie like snoops off to go investigate a lab.
Meanwhile, Nathan is calculating the trajectory of the shuttle launch.
Yeah, because he gets given this piece of a bomb because basically at the suspicious conversation earlier, Santonini basically told them they have to come up with another way to get Nathan out of the picture and to get them to stop investigating the ship now because their plan to kill Nathan basically failed. So they're going to frame him for the drugs, and they're basically going to make the crash look like it was sabotage by Angelo, who's dead now.
Yeah, don't they try and frame Nathan for the they call it an explosive wrapping for the bomb?
No, they're just framing him for the drugs.
Huh. Okay. I don't know why
They're
I thought
framing Angelo for the explosives because then they can't talk to Angelo because he's dead now.
Yeah. Yeah, so they're trying to throw him off the trail.
Because they give the explosive wrapping to Nathan, and that's why he's calculating the trajectory, because he's like, this doesn't make any sense. The numbers, what do they mean?
Yeah, and he finds out that if it wasn't for like a sudden moonquake, you've heard of earthquakes from the makers of earthquakes.
Comes moonquakes.
If it wasn't for a sudden moonquake, the trajectory of the launch would have been like completely wrong.
Yeah, it would have gone to this disused space station called like Starbase 9 or something. But Nathan says the moonquake was, or Box says the moonquake was predicted because you can apparently predict these things on the moon.
Yeah. You can predict earthquakes on Earth as well, to some extent. Can't you?
Not really, actually. It's like the one natural disaster that's like not... I mean, basically scientists can predict it to the extent they can be like, yeah, the fault line has moved and we're expecting to be hit by an earthquake, but we have no freaking clue when. But this is like, they can predict this moonquake like down to the hour.
2027, baby. I'm ready.
But yeah, Nathan says, well, then they should have canceled the launch because they would have known the moonquake was coming for the day of the launch. They should have just postponed it. He's like, but why didn't they?
Because uranium was involved, and because uranium was involved, money was involved. So yeah, that's the plan. They're smuggling uranium.
Yeah. They found uranium on the moon. Sunzek found uranium, so Sunzek is using whatever Santonini's company is called to smuggle the uranium
Santoni, I still think it's Santoni.
to Starbase 9, where then it's smuggled to Earth from there.
Right. So they're obviously making bank off of this operation.
Because apparently uranium is rare. Well, they explain that the big countries have like lots of laws and regulations about uranium because they're like, bombs and stuff, but a lot of the smaller countries would pay top dollar
Right.
for uranium, which is how they can get away with this.
Just what's going on here.
So Kenzie gets confronted by, still don't remember her name,
Condorini?
even though you keep saying it, Condorini. Don't know why I have such difficulty remembering that. It's like not even that hard at all. She gets confronted by Condorini, who's got a gun. Well, actually got a blowtorch, and is like, I'm gonna burn you.
Well, this is the scene where it seems like Kenzie wants in on the smuggling operation.
I thought she was just doing that to try to save her life, because I think she realized that Condorini was gonna kill her if she said no.
I don't know. Maybe I don't know. But then Divas shows up and saves Kenzie.
Yeah, like right when Connorini's about to shove Kenzie out of the airlock. Meanwhile, Nathan is going to investigate the ship because he's like, why wouldn't they cancel the launch? Something's suspicious here. And David stops him and is like, you can't go in there. And Nathan's like, why not? Because of your dad.
Yeah, Nathan actually brings this up like in a really weird manner. And we find out here that Theroux's father was actually killed by radiation.
Yeah. A radiation leak from like a rocket ship.
Right. Which is why Theroux has not wanted to even touch this case with a 10-foot pole.
And why he just wants to buy the explanation the Italians are feeding them because it involves not having to go into radioactive areas.
Yeah.
But Nathan's like, are you going to stop me? And David's like, no, I won't.
So he goes in.
Guns blazing.
Yeah. And Santonini is actually in there as well.
He's like, damn, Nathan, we could have all just been rich if you would just not poke to your head in here. You and your meddling kids.
Well, Santonini, like, figures out what Nathan is doing because he's watching some stuff on, like, a monitor. And I don't know if you took note of this, but this is something that I definitely paid attention to because of, like, all the hearsay and stuff that I'd known about, like, people saying Star Cops has a really low budget and a lot of it looks bad. Like, the control panel in Santonini's office is literally a Texas Instruments calculator taped to the arm of a chair. Like, this is the first time on Star Cops that I've really been like, wow, people were right. Like, this does look very low budget.
Hey, man, if someone else made buttons for you, why make your own? This is big brain time.
But yeah, Santonini's trying to shoot Nathan. Nathan's trying to avoid getting shot. And Theroux comes in and saves the day.
Right.
And
yeah, Nathan says something like, wow, cutting your timing a little close there, David, because Santonini literally has the gun up to Nathan's head.
Right.
And is about to pull the trigger when David just smacks him on the back of the head.
So, I mean, the day is saved. I guess they shut down the operation.
Yeah,
I guess
Kirilenko was like, good job, guys. And then he's like, you must stop the mafia from poisoning space, Nathan.
Such a funny line. That's like one of those old, like, lines from, like, those old, like, Nintendo games or whatever, where, like, are you a bad enough dude to rescue the president? I don't know what the game is called, but, like, it's like an old Nintendo game or, like, an old arcade game from the 80s where, like, the little plot dump at the beginning was like ninjas have kidnapped the presidents. Are you a bad enough dude to rescue the president? Are you a bad enough dude to stop the mafia from poisoning space?
I think Nathan responds with like, the mafia's already poisoned space. I just kept them off moon base. Oh, I did read that when Philip Martin said that Kravenko was the hardest character for him to write for because he had no idea what to do with him. He was like, what even is this character?
That's pretty funny. So the HR person contacts Nathan again, and she's like, "Hey Nathan, you never finished your break, so finish it or we're gonna fire you."
Because he was supposed to take 7 days.
Right.
It's apparently a medical leave, like you have to spend 7 days in regular Earth gravity for every 3 months or whatever in space, which I guess is good. But Nathan only spent 4 days on Earth before coming back up
I'm pretty sure
after almost getting killed.
I'm pretty sure the people who work on like the International Space Station don't do that. I think they just stay up there like for years at a time.
Yeah, and it causes some pretty weird stuff to happen. You ever seen those twins who were part of NASA, and one of the twins spent like a lot of time on the International Space Station? The other one was on the ground a lot more, and they like compared the two, and like the one who was on the space station is like, I think grew slightly taller because of the lack of gravity. It's pretty wild actually.
Yeah, it's pretty creepy.
And then there's like 2 random star cops just like in the background of this shot. I was like, wait, who are they? Why have we never heard about them before? It's like every episode we learn about more star cops who are just completely unimportant or get fired.
Right.
But yeah, David's like all happy that Nathan's back in charge. Devis is happy that Nathan's back in charge. And then HR immediately calls, is like, Nathan, you got to go back down to Earth. And it's like, David, you're back in charge. And Devis is like, no.
And then I'm glad they end this way. They end on like the silliest freeze frame with like the this is like a Blake 7 like level sitcom-y ending where like Theroux like puts his arm around like Kenzie and Devis's shoulder and he's like, guess all is well that ends well. And like he has the weirdest smile on his face. Kenzie looks like she's rolling her eyes, but like way too much, like way more than what would be comfortable. Devis is just like has a blank expression on his face and it just freeze frames for like 2 seconds. And it's amazing.
We were really waiting for those sitcom endings to show up in Star Cops, and all it took was Philip Martin writing the episode for it to happen.
Yeah, so I don't know if you had anything you wanted to kind of touch on here at the end. I just had one thing.
I actually didn't really have anything major that I wanted to touch on.
Yeah, this is a pretty straightforward episode. The one thing that I thought was really interesting was that Santanini, while he's trying to shoot Nathan, he was like, obviously this was all according to like our plan and you're getting in the way of it, so we have to get rid of you. But he makes mention that he actually had instructions to discredit the Star Cops before any of this started.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering, is he hinting at like a larger overarching plot here? And is that somehow related to like how nobody trusts the Star Cops?
Is it related to the guy who, like, does that lend credence to the story about the guy, the disgraced Star Cop who wanted to get back at Nathan or whatever?
Right.
There was just a cover story and a really shoddy one at best.
Yeah.
But like, does it lend credence to that? Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see. It could just be a throwaway line.
Could just be something they were setting up that never got played out because it got canceled.
Possibly. That's all I really had.
The only thing I wanted to talk about it was how it was kind of weird, like how anti-Italian this whole episode kind of felt. Like, it seemed like every Italian who was introduced in this episode was like a villain or in on the scheme somehow.
Yeah, it did feel that way. Even people who like maybe shouldn't have like been in on the scheme, right? Because it was a mafia operation, but like obviously the police were corrupt in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
Was the tour guide corrupt? I don't know. Maybe he was possibly the only Italian in this who wasn't corrupt.
Yeah, and that's the kind of weird thing is that like you look at it and you're like, wow, it's kind of weird how all the Italians are corrupt. Like, is that like, hold up, what's going on here?
I mean, it does, like, at the end of the day, like, it holds up because they're all part of the mob, but...
I guess, I guess it's supposed to be, like, the Star Cops are not a well-liked organization, but at the same time, it also plays into the Star Cops being, like, a non-government kind of, like, an impartial policing force, right? Which I guess, in the course of that, would make a lot of enemies.
Yeah.
It's... To me, I am like kind of hesitant about that though, because it leads me to believe that a lot of the upcoming episodes might just be, oh, the Star Cops are hated by someone. That's the plot for this week. Because it kind of seems like this is the second week in a row where that's happened, right? Last week, Nathan goes over to the American station and they all hate the space cops there too, right? They're like, you guys suck. You fired like the only American space cop. Like, you should basically work for us. Like, why are you an international organization? And then this week, it's like the Italians are like, you suck. You're basically overseeing our like waste dumping group for no reason. Like, you guys suck. And I'm hesitant that that's going to become like a recurring plot point that they're going to use, or like a crutch that they're going to lean on.
Well, this one throws a little bit of a different twist on it because it is like they did have this operation set up. Like, though Nathan is definitely trying to interfere in their smuggling business. So,
I guess, but I don't know. I'm just worried that they're gonna get kind of samey if they keep doing that every week.
yeah, we'll have to see.
And maybe it
I don't
only
know.
feels that way because it was like back to back. Americans hate Star Cops, Italians hate Star Cops, right?
Maybe, yeah. I did kind of wanted to quickly mention, there is some like environmental stuff in this, like we kind of mentioned before. They're dumping trash and nuclear waste in space, and their climate change is taking its toll. But like the result of this is like they get screwed over by like a natural event. So like, I guess nature took its revenge on the mafia after all. The moonquake is what I'm talking about.
I was gonna say, I just realized the Brits hate Star Cops too, because when Nathan went down, Divas was like, "You have no power here. You're just a nobody."
Yeah,
we all
they
hate
all
you
hate
here.
Star Cops.
All right.
That's why I'm still wondering if Nathan has like a license to carry on Earth at all. Obviously he does regardless, but like,
Well, he can up his death count now after this episode.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. I liked this episode though.
I did as well. I think it's one of the strongest of the five, I'd say. Maybe possibly, I
Yeah.
might look back and say this is my favorite.
I don't know. I
So
still think
three is-
episode 2 is my favorite.
Yeah. So, how many of Britain's 10 actors are in this episode of Star Cops? Well, quite a few, actually, who've been
You
in
can
quite a
take this
few other
one.
things.
I didn't look up any of the actors because I didn't think they were important enough.
Yeah, this is the first episode where I looked up all of the people mentioned in the credits. Normally, I just do the major characters, but this one, I looked up everyone, and it actually paid off, so I'm going to keep on doing that. So we have Michael Chesden playing Carlo Santanini. He was pretty much just in one-off episodes of unknown shows. I found out just playing single, characters. But then we have Susan Curnow playing Marla Condorini. She was in The Bill. We also have Stuart, I don't know how to say his last name, Guidotti. Guidotti, spelled,
know.
yeah, spelled Guidotti. He played Inspector Canova. He was in a show that I didn't know about, but I found out about it thanks to looking it up for this, called Pathfinders in Space. So this is
Another show for Inevitable to watch.
well, this is I don't know actually if this is a show for us to watch, because this is a series show actually created by Sidney Newman.
Wow, that's weird.
And it's from what I understand about it, it's actually like more of an educational show than like a science fiction
Should watch it anyway.
thing. Just throw out the like conceit of this show and
The conceit is just classic sci-fi, so if it has sci-fi, it's...
all right, if there's a sci-fi element to it, why not? Put it on the list. I mean, Children of the Stones isn't really sci-fi until like the last 15 minutes of the entire show, so we're watching that. So
there you go. Point proven.
we also have Vicky Chambers playing Lena Margello. She was in Coronation Street. All these actors are obviously in other roles, but these are the ones that I kind of recognized or that were bigger. We have Flip Webster, which is a really funny name, playing the personnel officer. She was actually in Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, weirdly enough. She was also in The Bill. She was in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire.
That's interesting.
She's still acting. This is one of her first roles, according to IMDb. We had Andre Winterton, who played Angelo Pordenone. He was also in The Bill. He played in Doctor Who. He was he played Zarak, and he played a plasmaton from Time Flight.
Great.
I don't remember who either of those things were.
No.
Plasmatons, I believe, are like the monsters from Time
Yeah.
Flight. But, and then we have Carl Forgione, who played the tour guide. He was also, again, in The Bill, also in Coronation Street, also in Doctor Who. He played a character called Land in Planet of the Spiders, whom I don't remember. He also played Nimrod in Ghostlight. And this is our first actor who was also in Blake 7. He played Grovane in Mission to Destiny. I don't remember who
Wow.
Grovane is either.
No idea.
The only character from Mission to Destiny I remember is 54124, aka Sarah.
I don't remember that episode very well. The only thing I remember is me complaining about how the title didn't make sense.
Well, they were going to the planet Destiny because they were delivering that like thing that would revive their agriculture, but then Sarah was like being paid off by some other force to like stop that, and they have this entire investigation.
Right. All right, so
quotes. Do
quotes.
You have any?
I actually do have one from Divas, which I thought was funny. Kenzie gets called a bitch when she's arresting what's her name?
Cordononi. Condorini. God.
She gets called a bitch by Condorini when she's arresting her, and then Colin says something like, "How did you know I was going to save you? I could have been locked in a passionate embrace." And Kenzie's like, "No chance of that, Colin." And he's all, "You're right. She's right. You are a bitch."
Yeah, it's a good one, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah. If you like how much the Star Cops are always at each other's throats, which I do like.
It's all right.
It's okay. I had one quote, which we already mentioned. It was Kravchenko's, "You must stop the Mafia from poisoning space."
Solid
Kravchenko. I hope Kravchenko has like one weird
one weird line a week.
Yeah.
Movie stuff. I
didn't pick up on any.
I didn't pick up on anything. The Anorak Zone has like a weird, like obscure reference that Nathan's hallucinations while under the influence of drugs are a direct homage to a movie called Farewell, My Lovely, which I haven't seen.
Huh.
And apparently he also asks David when he's being relieved whether he's quoting from a movie called The Caine Mutiny, which I also haven't seen.
Yeah, I did not pick up on any of those.
There's a note here that says the idea of David and Nathan being film buffs was Chris Boucher's idea, and from this point on, with his lesser involvement in the writing, it began to fade out.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So there you go.
That's all I had.
That's all I got. You can email us at thedoctor@decorativevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on this case to be opened in a million years. You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and hopefully Spotify at Inevitable. Classic Sci-Fi Podcast. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook. Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast and follow us on Twitter. And next time we're going to be watching In Warm Blood. But until then, the end.